Once upon a velvet dusk, in the labyrinthine halls of Topkapi Palace, where the scent of rosewater lingered and slippers whispered secrets across polished marble, hundreds of women dreamed not of diamonds or dances, but of books, biscuits, and bureaucratic power. Yes, dear listener, behind the gilded lattice screens and embroidered curtains of the Ottoman imperial harem, the hidden desires were not always what the poets imagined. Some longed to become poets themselves. Others plotted to reorganize the towel inventory. One ambitious concubine dreamed of inventing a better teapot, and the Valida Sultan, she secretly wanted to open a bakery. This is not a tale of scandal, but of sleepy ambition, of women who wielded influence with a raised eyebrow and a well-timed embroidery stitch, of eunuchs who knew every rumor but preferred Sudoku, of sultans who ruled empires but couldn't find their slippers. So, tuck yourself in, dear dreamer. Let the soft rustle of silk and the distant echo of oud music lull you into a world where history tiptoes, yawns, and occasionally giggles. And before your eyelids get heavy, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments from where you're watching from. Is it Istanbul? Or London? The couch you've been stuck to since Tuesday? I'm here for it. It began, as most palace scandals do, with a slipper. Not just any slipper, mind you. This was the prized possession of Lady Feride, third-ranked concubine of Sultan Murad IV, known for her impeccable embroidery and her ability to fall asleep mid-sentence. Her slippers were legendary, stitched with golden thread, lined with cloud-soft camel wool, and rumored to contain a secret compartment for cinnamon sticks. Why cinnamon? No one knew. But it was the harem, and logic had long since packed its bags and left for Persia. One morning, Lady Feride awoke to find one slipper missing. Just one. The left one. The rebellious one. The one that always squeaked slightly when she walked, as if protesting its royal duties. She gasped. She fainted. She dramatically rolled off her divan and landed on a eunuch named Mustafa, who had been quietly dusting the curtains and contemplating retirement. "Who would dare steal my slipper?" she cried, clutching her remaining shoe like a wounded dove. The harem erupted. The Valida Sultan was summoned. She arrived wearing her battle kaftan, embroidered with tiny angry tulips, and declared a full investigation. The palace guards were baffled. The slipper was nowhere to be found. The cinnamon stash remained untouched. Suspicion fell on Lady Zeynep, known for her love of footwear and her suspiciously squeaky walk. "I swear on my rosewater stash, I didn't take it," Zeynep protested, while subtly adjusting her left foot. Meanwhile, Sultan Murad IV, blissfully unaware of the chaos, was busy sleepwalking through the palace archives, leaving behind a trail of misplaced scrolls and half-eaten figs. He would later claim divine inspiration, but the scribes suspected sleep-induced snacking. Back in the harem, the slipper hunt intensified. The eunuchs formed a search party, armed with feather dusters and passive-aggressive sighs. Lady Feride began composing a mournful poem titled Ode to My Left Foot. The palace cat, Princess Whiskerhan, was interrogated but offered no comment. Finally, after 3 days of drama, the slipper was discovered. On top of the Sultan's prized tortoise, Shelmet Pasha, who had apparently mistaken it for a sun hat. The harem rejoiced. Lady Feride wept tears of joy and cinnamon. The Valid Sultan declared a new law. All slippers must be tethered to their owners during naps. Sultan Murad IV, upon waking, declared Shelmet Pasha a national hero and awarded him a tiny medal made of fig. And so, peace returned to the palace. For now, the Valid Sultan, mother of Sultan Murad IV and undisputed queen of eyebrow raises, ruled the harem with the precision of a master chess player and the appetite of a pastry chef. While others plotted alliances and whispered secrets, she plotted soufflés. Her private chambers were a fortress of lace, velvet, and the faint aroma of cardamom. Hidden behind a tapestry of a very judgmental peacock was her greatest treasure, the imperial cookbook of forbidden delights, bound in leather and sealed with a lock shaped like a tiny spoon. It contained recipes so powerful they had once caused a minor diplomatic incident with Venice, involving a rogue tiramisu and a jealous ambassador. Each night, after the palace had settled into its usual symphony of snores, the Valid Sultan would light a single candle, don her flower-dusted robe, and whisper to her cookbook like it was a long-lost lover. "Tonight," she murmured, "we attempt the pistachio rebellion." The recipe was complex. It required 47 ingredients, 3 blessings from the spice merchant, and a chicken that had never told a lie. But the Valid Sultan was determined. She believed that true power came not from titles, but from the ability to make a dessert so divine it could silence a room full of gossiping concubines. Her assistant, a sleepy eunuch named Yusuf, was tasked with grinding almonds while reciting poetry. He often fell asleep mid-verse, resulting in almond dust and accidental haikus. Meanwhile, rumors swirled. Lady Feride claimed the Valide Sultan was baking coded messages into her baklava. Lady Zeynep insisted the cookbook was enchanted, and once summoned a ghost who critiqued her flan. Princess Whiskerhen, the palace cat, simply sat on the cookbook and refused to move. One night, the Sultan himself wandered into the kitchen, sleepwalking again. He took a bite of the pistachio rebellion and declared, "I hereby abolish taxes on dessert," before curling up in a mixing bowl. The next morning, the Valide Sultan smiled. Her recipe had worked. Not only had she sweetened the Sultan's mood, but she'd also secured a new oven and diplomatic immunity for her soufflés. And so, the cookbook remained hidden, its pages filled with dreams, spices, and the quiet power of a woman who ruled with sugar and strategy. In the heart of the harem, where whispers floated like rose petals and secrets were traded for almond cookies, lived a eunuch named Halil. He was not the fastest, nor the strongest, nor the most enthusiastic about palace drama, but he was the most observant, mostly because he had nowhere else to be, and a fondness for standing very still. Halil had mastered the art of invisibility. He could blend into curtains, vanish behind potted plants, and once spent 3 hours disguised as a decorative vase. During these moments of strategic stillness, he absorbed everything. Who was feuding? Who was flirting? Who had stolen the Valid Sultan's nutmeg? It was Lady Zeynep again. He didn't mean to know so much. It just happened, like lint collecting on velvet, or unsolicited advice from your aunt. His mind was a palace of secrets. He knew that Lady Feride had a crush on the palace baker, that the Sultan's prized tortoise, Shelmet Pasha, had a gambling problem, mostly involving dice and lettuce, that the Valide Sultan's cookbook contained a recipe for diplomatic muffins, which could end wars if served warm. But Halil had one rule: never interfere. He believed in the sacred power of naps, and palace drama was the enemy of sleep, so he kept his knowledge tucked away, like a squirrel hoarding gossip, until one day, disaster struck. Lady Zeynep accused Lady Faraday of stealing her eyebrow pencil, a serious offense in a world where eyebrow arching was a competitive sport. The harem erupted. Pillows were thrown. Someone fainted into a bowl of sherbet. The Sultan, sleepwalking again, declared, "Let there be eyebrows," and wandered off. Halil sighed. He had seen the eyebrow pencil fall behind a cushion 3 days ago. He had watched it roll under a divan. He had even written a haiku about it, lost in velvet folds, eyebrow dreams beneath the couch. Peace sleeps in silence. But revealing the truth meant breaking his vow of non-interference. It meant choosing peace over mystery. It meant talking. So Halil cleared his throat. The harem froze. He pointed to the cushion. The eyebrow pencil was retrieved. Lady Zeynep wept with joy. Lady Faride offered him a cinnamon stick. The Valid Sultan nodded in approval and gifted him a nap voucher. From that day on, Halil became the unofficial keeper of calm. He still preferred silence, still disguised himself as furniture, but occasionally, just occasionally, he whispered a truth that saved the day. And then he napped, because some heroes wear robes, and some just really need a nap. Lady Nigar was not like the other concubines. While they perfected the art of eyelash fluttering and competitive sighing, she perfected the Dewey Decimal System. Without knowing it existed, she didn't want jewels. She didn't want power. She wanted books, scrolls, manuscripts, anything with words that didn't involve gossip or recipes for seduction stew. Her obsession began when she found a forgotten scroll behind a tapestry. It was a treatise on astronomy, written by a scholar who clearly had a crush on the moon. She read it by candlelight, hidden under her blanket, while pretending to snore in iambic pentameter. Soon, she was sneaking into the palace archives. She disguised herself as a sleepy janitor named Nigar the Dust Whisperer. She borrowed scrolls, copied poems, and once accidentally translated a tax document into romantic verse. Her quarters became a secret library, shelves made of stacked cushions, scrolls tucked into teapots, a secret index hidden inside a hollowed-out baklava. The other concubines were baffled. "Why read when you can nap?" asked Lady Zeynep, who had recently declared war on punctuation. "Books don't complement your caftan," added Lady Faride, adjusting her eyebrow arch. But Lady Nigar persisted. She believed knowledge was the ultimate rebellion, that stories could be more seductive than perfume, that bedtime tales could change the world, one sleepy reader at a time. One night, the Sultan wandered into her room, sleepwalking again. He picked up a scroll, read 2 lines of a poem, and declared, "I hereby ban boredom," before curling up on a pile of manuscripts. The next morning, Lady Nigar was summoned by the Valide Sultan. "You've been reading," the Valide said, narrowing her eyes. "Yes," Nigar replied, clutching a scroll like a teddy bear. The Valide Sultan paused. Then she pulled out a dusty tome from her sleeve. "Good. I need help organizing my cookbook footnotes." And so, Lady Nigar became the palace's secret librarian. Her library grew, her influence spread, and every night she read stories to the other concubines, tales of stars, queens, and sleepy revolutions. Because sometimes the most powerful desire is the desire to know. Sultan Murad Fortur was a man of many talents, ruling empires, composing poetry, and, most notably, sleepwalking with dramatic flair. By day, he was regal and composed. By night, he was a wandering mystery, wrapped in silk pajamas and questionable decisions. It began innocently enough. One evening, the Sultan was found in the palace kitchen, gently petting a sack of flour and whispering, "You are the softest vizier." The flour was flattered. The vizier was confused. The next night, he wandered into the harem's courtyard, climbed into a decorative fountain, and declared, "I hereby baptize the moon," before falling asleep on a lily pad. The palace staff tried everything: bells on his slippers, enchanted lullabies, even a scroll titled "How to Anchor Your Soul While You Snooze." Nothing worked. The Sultan's nightly adventures continued. Lady Faraday began keeping a Sultan Sightings journal. It included entries like, Tuesday, found him in the laundry room, folding towels into swans. Wednesday, attempted to knight a broom. Thursday, gave a motivational speech to a bowl of grapes. The Valid Sultan was mortified. "We cannot have a ruler who sleep snuggles the furniture," she exclaimed, while secretly knitting him a bedtime crown. One night, the Sultan wandered into the library and rearranged all the scrolls by emotional intensity. Lady Nigar was both impressed and furious. "He's a literary menace," she whispered, clutching her poetry stash. But the scandal reached its peak when the Sultan sleepwalked into a diplomatic meeting with the Persian ambassador, wearing a blanket like a cape, and offering him a spoon as a peace treaty. The ambassador accepted. Peace was declared. The spoon was framed. After that, the palace embraced the Sultan's nocturnal quirks. A sleepwalk watch was established. Halil the eunuch was appointed royal dream tracker. Lady Zainab began designing fashionable sleep helmets, and Sultan Murad IV, he continued his nightly strolls, blissfully unaware that his dreams were shaping policy, inspiring poetry, and occasionally redecorating the palace. Because in the Ottoman Empire, even sleep was political, and sometimes the best decisions were made in pajamas. Lady Yasemin was known for two things: her impeccable embroidery and her uncanny ability to predict when someone would trip over a cushion. Some called it intuition. Others called it witchcraft. She called it just paying attention. Her embroidery was legendary. She stitched roses that blushed, birds that looked mildly judgmental, and once, a camel that seemed to be filing taxes. But one day, something strange happened. She embroidered a pillowcase with a scene: the Sultan, standing on a balcony, holding a spoon and declaring peace. It was whimsical, absurd, and oddly specific. 3 nights later, Sultan Murad IV sleepwalked onto a balcony, held up a spoon, and declared peace with the Persian ambassador. The harem gasped. Lady Yasemin blinked. The pillowcase smirked. Word spread. Her embroidery was no longer just decorative. It was prophetic. Concubines lined up, requesting pillowcases that predicted eyebrow trends, biscuit recipes, and romantic outcomes. One asked for a stitch forecast on whether she'd get a nap that afternoon. She did. It was glorious. Lady Yasemin became the palace oracle. She stitched quietly, sipping rose tea, while her threads whispered secrets of tomorrow. Her latest work? A tapestry showing the Valide Sultan opening a bakery and Sultan Murad IV sleepwalking into a vat of custard. The Valide Sultan was intrigued. She began commissioning strategic embroidery, pillowcases that hinted at political alliances, dessert diplomacy, and slipper security protocols. But Lady Yasemin had one rule: no embroidery for evil. She refused to stitch betrayal, sabotage, or anything involving raisins. She had strong feelings about raisins. One night, she embroidered a scene of Lady Zeynep winning the Harem Olympics by napping mid-pillow fight. It came true. Zeynep was thrilled. She framed the pillowcase and declared herself champion of sleep. And so, Lady Yasemin stitched on, her needle dancing through silk and fate. Her pillowcases became bedtime legends, her prophecies soft and sleepy, and her legacy woven into the very fabric of palace dreams. Because sometimes the future isn't written in stars. It's stitched in thread, tucked under your head, and waiting to whisper you to sleep. In the Ottoman harem, rosewater was more than a luxury. It was a lifestyle. It perfumed pillows, softened skin, flavored desserts, and occasionally served as diplomatic currency. The Valid Sultan herself once traded a vial for a Persian carpet that smelled like ambition. So, when the palace's rosewater reserves mysteriously vanished, chaos bloomed like a confused tulip. It began with Lady Faraday, noticing her morning spritz felt suspiciously like plain water. She sniffed. She frowned. She fainted dramatically into a pile of silk scarves. Soon, the entire harem was in uproar. The rosewater was gone, replaced by impostors, lavender, mint, and one bottle that smelled like regret. The Valide Sultan summoned her elite investigative squad, Halil the eunuch, master of quiet observation, Lady Yasemin, embroiderer of prophecies, and Princess Whiskerhen, the palace cat who had recently taken up espionage. Their mission: find the thief, restore the scent, protect the pores. Suspects emerged quickly. Lady Zeynep, who had recently launched a skincare line called Zeynep's Zest. The Sultan, who had sleepwalked into the bathhouse and declared, "Let all things smell of figs." A mysterious new concubine named Layla, who wore gloves and smelled suspiciously hydrated. Halil discovered rosewater footprints leading to the palace bakery. Lady Yasemin embroidered a pillowcase showing a rosewater explosion and a very moisturized tortoise. Princess Whiskerhan knocked over a suspicious bottle labeled "Not rosewater," "Definitely not," "Don't smell this." The trail led to the Sultan's private garden, where a hidden spa had been constructed, complete with rosewater fountains, cucumber masks, and a sign that read, "Secret Spa, no boys allowed, except Sultan Murad IV if sleepwalking." The mastermind? Lady Layla. She had siphoned the rosewater to create a sanctuary for stressed concubines. Her motive? Moisture. Her method? Sneaky ladles and a camel named Bubbles. The Valid Sultan was furious. Then she tried the spa. Then she forgave everyone. Rosewater was restored. The harem rejoiced. Lady Layla was promoted to Minister of Moisture. Sultan Murad IV sleepwalked into the spa, declared it a national treasure, and fell asleep in a rose-scented hammock. And so, the great Rosewater heist became legend, a tale of scent, scandal, and the undeniable power of hydration. The hammam, Ottoman bathhouse of dreams, steam, and suspiciously well-informed loofahs, was the true nerve center of the harem. While the palace halls echoed with polite diplomacy and embroidered silence, the hammam was where the real stories soaked. Lady Zeynep called it the steam room of truth. Lady Farid called it too humid for eyeliner. Lady Nigar, ever the librarian, called it Volume 2 of the Gossip Encyclopedia. Every afternoon, the concubines gathered in the hammam. Wrapped in towels and ambition, the steam swirled like a genie with a juicy secret. Conversations began innocently. Did you hear the Sultan sleep mumbled a love poem to a melon? Lady Yasemin embroidered a prophecy about a biscuit uprising. Princess Whiskerhand knocked over the Valide Sultan's rosewater stash again. But soon, the whispers turned strategic. The hammam became a place of alliances, pillow fight pacts, and eyebrow diplomacy. One concubine claimed she could decode steam patterns. Another insisted the loofahs were listening. Halil the eunuch, ever discreet, installed a gossip buffer curtain to prevent echo leaks. It didn't work. The steam had ears. One day, a new rumor bubbled up. Someone was planning to redecorate the hammam, replace the marble with velvet, add scented fog, introduce hammam-themed poetry readings. Lady Zeynep was outraged. Velvet in humidity? Madness. Lady Faraday began composing protest songs. Lady Nigar drafted a scroll titled The Ethics of Steam-Based Renovation. The Valide Sultan, upon hearing the uproar, entered the hammam with her battle towel and declared, "Let the steam remain sacred." The renovation was cancelled. The hammam was preserved, and the whisper network continued, soft, steamy, and slightly scented with sandalwood, because in the Ottoman harem, secrets didn't just slip through lips. They floated through steam, wrapped in warmth, and tucked into towels. In the harem, biscuits were more than snacks. They were symbols of status, seduction, and strategic snacking. The Valide Sultan's personal biscuit stash was guarded like a state secret. Lady Farida once claimed she could taste betrayal in a poorly baked shortbread. Lady Zeynep insisted her almond crisps could end wars. And Lady Nigar, she read scrolls while nibbling ginger snaps with the intensity of a scholar mid-thesis. But one biscuit ruled them all. The Sultan's Delight, a mysterious, buttery, flaky creation so divine it was banned from casual consumption. Legend said it was baked only once during a celestial alignment and caused the Sultan to declare a national nap day. The recipe was locked away in the palace vault, guarded by a tortoise named Shelmet Pasha and a eunuch who spoke only in pastry metaphors. Until one day, it leaked. Lady Layla, Minister of Moisture and part-time biscuit enthusiast, claimed she found a copy hidden inside a hollowed-out rosewater bottle. She baked it. She tasted it. She wept. Then she shared it with Lady Zeynep, who immediately declared it a biscuit of destiny. Word spread. The harem buzzed. Biscuit fever gripped the palace. Unauthorized baking began. Ovens glowed like rebellious stars. Crumbs littered the halls. Even Princess Whiskerhand began hoarding dough. The Valide Sultan was furious. "This biscuit is forbidden," she cried, while secretly licking a spoon. A tribunal was held. The accused concubines presented their defense, a tray of perfectly baked Sultan's delights. The Valide Sultan took one bite. She fainted. Then she woke up and declared, "Fine, but only on Thursdays." From that day on, Thursdays became Biscuit Day. The harem celebrated with crumbs, cream, and competitive dunking. Sultan Murad IV, sleepwalking as usual, wandered into the kitchen, took a bite, and declared, "I hereby knight this cookie." And so, the forbidden biscuit became tradition, a tale of rebellion, recipe theft, and the undeniable power of baked goods. Because in the Ottoman harem, desire wasn't just embroidered, it was baked, shared, and served with a side of sleepy joy. Princess Whiskerhand was no ordinary cat. She was the Sultan's personal feline, a creature of mystery, majesty, and mild disdain. Her fur shimmered like moonlight on rosewater. Her eyes held the secrets of 10 dynasties. Her purr could silence a room or start a revolution. She didn't meow. She made statements. By day, she lounged on silk cushions, judging concubines with a flick of her tail. By night, she prowled the palace halls, knocking over scrolls, rearranging slippers, and occasionally sitting on the Valide Sultan's strategic embroidery. Rumors swirled. Some said she was the reincarnation of a Persian queen. Others claimed she had her own spy network, made entirely of birds. Lady Zeynep insisted Whiskerhan once blinked in Morse code to veto a biscuit treaty, but one thing was certain. Princess Whiskerhen had influence. She chose where the Sultan napped. She decided which concubine received his sleepwalking serenade. She once sat on a map of Hungary for 3 days, causing a diplomatic delay that historians still debate. Her political maneuvers were subtle. She curled up on Lady Farid's lap during a poetry reading, boosting her popularity. She knocked over Lady Layla's rosewater stash during a spa proposal, delaying the vote. She stared at Halil the eunuch for 7 minutes, after which he mysteriously reorganized the palace towel inventory. The Valid Sultan respected her, feared her, occasionally bribed her with sardines. One day, Whiskerhen entered the council chamber, leapt onto the Sultan's throne, and sat. Just sat. The room fell silent. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, bowed to her and declared, "All hail the Whispering Whisker." From that moment, Princess Whiskerhen was officially recognized as Advisor of Ambiance. Her duties included approving nap locations, judging embroidery aesthetics, ensuring palace drama remained below a purr threshold. And so, the Sultan's cat ruled, not with claws, but with charisma. Her agenda was simple: peace, naps, and the occasional sardine. Because in the Ottoman harem, even the fluffiest creature could shape empires, one twitch of the tail at a time. Lady Metop was a visionary, not in politics, not in poetry, but in pajamas. While other concubines obsessed over caftans embroidered with peacocks and gowns that required 3 assistants and a prayer to wear, Metop dreamed of soft cotton, elastic waistbands, and the radical idea that bedtime clothes should not feel like diplomatic armor. Her rebellion began one humid night when she tried to sleep in a ceremonial robe that weighed more than a small camel. She tossed. She turned. She accidentally knocked over a vase with her sleeve. She declared, "Enough." The next morning, she appeared in the courtyard, wearing a loose tunic and matching trousers made from leftover curtain fabric. The harem gasped. Lady Zeynep fainted into a pile of silk. Lady Faraday whispered, "Is she comfortable?" Metop smiled. "I call them pajamas. They're for sleeping and dreaming and possibly light stretching." The Valida Sultan was skeptical. "Where are the sequins? The drama? The unnecessary shoulder pads?" Metop replied, "In the laundry, where they belong." Soon, whispers spread. Concubines began requesting pajama fittings. Lady Nigar embroidered bedtime quotes on hers. Lady Yasemin stitched prophetic dreams into her cuffs. Even Princess Whiskerhan curled up on a pile of pajama prototypes and purred her approval. But not everyone was pleased. The Royal Fashion Council, a group of 3 very dramatic tailors and 1 opinionated tortoise, declared pajamas a threat to tradition. They staged a protest involving glitter, feathers, and a strongly worded scroll. Metop responded with a fashion show. Models, mostly sleepy eunuchs, strutted down a hallway lined with cushions, showcasing designs like the nap tunic, breathable, snack-pocketed, and resistant to gossip. The dream robe, reversible, rose-scented, and embroidered with bedtime affirmations. The Sultan snoozer, a deluxe pajama set with built-in slipper holsters. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, wandered into the show wearing a curtain. He saw the pajamas, nodded solemnly, and declared, "Let comfort reign." From that day on, pajamas were palace approved. Mehtap was named Minister of Sleepwear. Thursdays became Soft Fabric Day, and the harem slept better than ever, dreaming not just of power and poetry, but of elastic waistbands and breathable bliss, because in the Ottoman harem, even rebellion could be cozy, and sometimes the boldest statement is a good night's sleep. In the quietest corner of the harem's music chamber sat an oud, an ancient, pear-shaped lute with strings that shimmered like moonlight, and a temperament that could only be described as dramatic. No one knew where it came from. Some said it was gifted by a wandering mystic. Others claimed it was carved from a tree that only grew during eclipses. Lady Zeynep swore it once winked at her. Lady Farid insisted it played better than the palace musicians and had better posture. The oud had a reputation. It played itself. Not always, not predictably, but often enough to cause concern, confusion, and one very awkward dance-off between two startled eunuchs. It began one evening when Lady Yasemin embroidered a pillowcase with musical notes. The oud responded by playing the tune, soft, slow, and slightly judgmental. The harem froze. Princess Whiskerhand hissed. The Valide Sultan dropped her spoon. From then on, the oud became a mystery. It played lullabies during nap time. It strummed dramatic chords during gossip. It once performed a flawless rendition of The Concubine's Crumbs Waltz during Biscuit Day. Lady Nigar tried to catalog its behavior. She noted that it preferred moonlight, disliked humidity, and played louder when someone lied. Her scroll, Oud Mood, a study in stringed sass, became a bedtime bestseller. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, wandered into the music chamber, bowed to the oud, and declared, "You are now Minister of Melody." The oud responded with a triumphant riff. Attempts to tame it failed. One musician tried to tune it. It tuned him back. Another tried to play it. It played his secrets. The Valide Sultan ordered it moved to the archives. It reappeared in her bath. Eventually, the harem accepted the ode as one of their own. A musical oracle, a stringed sage, a moody roommate with impeccable timing. And so, the oud played on, softly, mysteriously, and always just when you needed a lullaby or a dramatic soundtrack to your biscuit heist. Because in the Ottoman harem, even the instruments had desires, and sometimes they just wanted to be heard. Lady Farid, mid-poetry recital, paused dramatically and whispered, "I need a pastry." The harem nodded in solemn agreement. It was 2 a.m. The stars were twinkling. The biscuits were gone. The hunger was real. But the palace bakery was 3 courtyards, 2 guards, and one suspiciously judgmental tortoise away. And the Valide Sultan had declared midnight snacking a threat to waistlines and diplomacy. Enter Lady Layla, Minister of Moisture and unofficial architect of mischief. "I have a plan," she said, holding a spoon like a blueprint. Over the next week, a team of sleepy rebels, including Halil the eunuch, Lady Nigar, who insisted on cataloging every brick, and Princess Whiskerhand, who supervised by sitting on blueprints, dug a tunnel beneath the harem. They used spoons, slippers, and one very confused camel named Bubbles The tunnel was discreet, cushioned for quiet crawling, scented with cinnamon, lit by glow-in-the-dark embroidery stitched by Lady Yasemin. They called it the Crumway. At night, concubines snuck through the tunnel, emerging in the bakery like flour-dusted ghosts. They feasted on flaky borek, sleepy simit, and the legendary Sultan's Delight, now legal on Thursdays. They whispered poetry to pastries. They held biscuit summits. They napped in bread baskets. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, discovered the tunnel one night and declared, "This is the path to peace," before falling asleep on a pile of croissants. Eventually, the Valid Sultan found out. She followed the scent of rebellion and arrived in the bakery wearing her battle apron. The concubines froze. Halil dropped his spoon. Princess Whiskerhen knocked over a tray of muffins. The Valide Sultan took a bite of borek. She chewed. She sighed. She declared, "Fine, but install a velvet rug." And so, the tunnel became official. The Crumway was added to palace maps. Midnight snacking was sanctioned, and the harem rejoiced, dreaming not just of power and poetry, but of pastries and secret passageways. Because in the Ottoman harem, desire wasn't just embroidered or whispered. It was baked, tunneled, and served warm with a side of sleepy joy. Lady Zeynep accused Lady Faride of stealing her favorite pillow, the one embroidered with tiny smug tulips and stuffed with imported goose feathers. Lady Faride denied it. Lady Nigar tried to mediate. Princess Whiskerhen sat on the pillow in question and refused to move. Tensions rose. Eyebrows arched. Slippers were sharpened. Then, one fateful afternoon, Lady Zeynep launched the first strike, a gentle toss of a lavender-scented pillow that hit Lady Faride squarely in the dignity. The harem gasped. Lady Faride retaliated with a double fluff counterattack. Lady Yasemin joined in, wielding a bolster like a battle baton. Within minutes, the harem was a battlefield of feathers and giggles. Pillows flew like diplomatic declarations. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, wandered through the chaos wearing a blanket toga and declared, "Let the fluff be fair." The Valide Sultan arrived, armed with her ceremonial cushion and a scroll titled "Conflict Resolution for the Soft-Hearted." She called for a cease fluff. The concubines froze mid-swing. A treaty was proposed. Thus was born the Pillow Fight Treaty of 1683, with the following clauses. 1. All pillow fights must occur between sunset and snack time. 2. No weaponized embroidery. 3. Feather refills shall be provided by the Royal Goose Guild. 4. Victory shall be declared by Princess Whiskerhand's tail twitch. 5. Losers must compose a haiku about softness. Lady Nigar drafted the treaty in scented ink. Lady Yasemin embroidered the preamble onto a ceremonial cushion. Lady Zeynep and Lady Faride shook hands, then immediately resumed pillow combat under Clause 1. The treaty was a triumph. Pillow fights became weekly events. The Sultan occasionally refereed. Using a ladle as a whistle, the Valid Sultan introduced themed rounds, including historical pillow duels and nap versus snack debates. And so, peace was restored, not through silence, but through softness. Because in the Ottoman harem, even conflict could be cozy, and diplomacy was best delivered with a well-aimed puff of feathers. Sultan Murad Pafort had many advisors, some wise, some dramatic, and one who didn't technically exist. His name was Nefes, and according to the Sultan, he was invisible, ancient, and had excellent taste in slippers. The palace was divided. Lady Faride believed Nefes was a ghost who haunted the embroidery room. Lady Zeynep insisted he was a figment of the Sultan's sleepwalking imagination. Lady Nigar began compiling a scroll titled Spectral Politics, a study in imaginary governance. But the Sultan was adamant. Nefes advised him on everything: where to nap, under the fig tree, never near the tortoise; what to eat, always dessert first; how to rule, with softness, slippers, and occasional spoon proclamations. One night, the Sultan held a council meeting and left an empty cushion for Nafis. The Valide Sultan raised an eyebrow. Halil the eunuch nodded respectfully toward the cushion. Princess Whiskerhen sat on it. The Sultan claimed Nafis once negotiated peace with a ghost ambassador from the Persian archives. He said Nefis composed lullabies that only cats could hear. He insisted Nefis had predicted the Great Biscuit uprising and warned against velvet in the hammam. Lady Yasemin embroidered a pillowcase with a silhouette of Nefis, just in case. It mysteriously disappeared the next morning. Then strange things began to happen. Scrolls rearranged themselves into bedtime poems. Slippers appeared in perfect pairs. Even after chaotic naps, the Oud played lullabies no one had written. The harem whispered, was Nefes real? Was he a ghost? A dream? A very organized breeze? One evening, the Sultan sleepwalked into the courtyard, bowed to the moon and said, "Thank you, Nefes. You've made me a better sleeper." The Valide Sultan, moved by the sincerity and the moonlight, declared Nefis an honorary advisor. A plaque was hung in the Sultan's chamber. Nefis, whisperer of wisdom, keeper of slippers. And so, the invisible friend became part of palace legend. Whether ghost, dream, or figment, Nefis reminded them all that sometimes the best advice comes from within, or from a very polite, imaginary companion with excellent taste. Because in the Ottoman Harem, even the unseen had influence, and every dream deserved a seat at the table. Every empire needs its games. Rome had gladiators. Greece had marathons. The Ottoman Harem? It had the Harem Olympics, a majestic celebration of leisure, fluff, and competitive lounging. Founded by the Valide Sultan after a particularly dramatic nap, the Harem Olympics were held annually in the courtyard, beneath silk banners, and beside a suspiciously judgmental tortoise named Shelmet Pasha. Events included competitive napping. Concubines were judged on speed of sleep, elegance of snore, and dream content. Lady Faride once dreamed of a biscuit parliament and won gold. Synchronized sighing. Teams of 3 performed choreographed sighs to music played by the haunted Oud. And Lady Zeynep's trio won with their rendition of Melancholy in Rose Minor. Slipper toss, a test of aim, flair, and slipper aerodynamics, where Lady Yasemin embroidered her slippers with tiny wings. They flew. She won, and the slippers retired with honors. Scroll rolling. Lady Nigar dominated this event, rolling scrolls with such precision they were mistaken for royal pastries. Cat herding, unofficial. Princess Whiskerhen was the sole judge. No one ever won, and she once awarded a bronze sardine to herself. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, wandered into the games wearing a robe made of cushions, declared, "Let the fluff be fair," and attempted to referee the slipper toss with a ladle. Halil the eunuch served as a scorekeeper, using a system based on sigh intensity and biscuit bribes. The Valide Sultan oversaw the opening ceremony, which featured a parade of embroidered dreams and a nap so synchronized it was studied by scholars. At the end of the games, medals were awarded: gold, a nap voucher, and a scroll of bedtime poetry; silver, a rose-scented pillow and diplomatic immunity during gossip hour, bronze, a biscuit, slightly warm, possibly enchanted. The Harem Olympics became legend, a celebration of sleepy excellence, soft rebellion, and the belief that rest is a noble pursuit. Because in the Ottoman harem, even competition was cozy, and every victory ended with a nap. Lady Dilara was not like the others. While most concubines dreamed of rosewater baths and embroidered compliments, she dreamed of ruling not just the harem, not just the palace, the entire empire. Her eyeliner was sharp. Her plans were sharper. She kept a scroll titled 5 Steps to Sultanhood, hidden inside a hollowed-out cushion. It read, Master the art of dramatic entrances. Dilara never entered a room. She arrived, with wind, music, and occasionally a trained dove. Control the gossip flow. She bribed Lady Zeynep with biscuits to spread flattering rumors. Did you hear Dilara solve the biscuit crisis? She embroidered a prophecy while blindfolded. She once outnapped the Sultan, win over the Valide. Sultan Dilara gifted her a rose-scented scroll titled Leadership Through Lounging. The Valide Sultan wept. Then she asked for a sequel. Influence the Sultan's dreams. She whispered bedtime advice into his sleepwalking ear. Tax the slippers less. Promote the nap squad. Appoint Dilara as supreme pillow advisor. Establish a signature move. Hers was the royal sigh, a dramatic exhale that made curtains flutter and eunuchs reconsider their life choices. The harem watched in awe. Lady Faride began taking notes. Lady Nigar drafted a scroll titled Ambition in Silk, The Rise of Dilara. Princess Whiskerhan sat on Dilara's throne-shaped cushion and purred her approval. One night, during a moonlit poetry reading, the Sultan, sleepwalking naturally, wandered in, bowed to Dilara, and declared, You are now Sultan of Softness. The Valide Sultan raised an eyebrow. Then she smiled. Let her rule. For one day, Dilara's reign was glorious. She declared a nap holiday. She redistributed biscuits. She installed velvet hammocks in the courtyard. She knighted Halil the eunuch with a feather duster. At sunset, she stepped down gracefully, her eyeliner still perfect. And so, Lady Dilara became legend, not for seizing power, but for showing that ambition could be soft, strategic, and scented with rosewater. Because in the Ottoman harem, even dreams of ruling were wrapped in silk, and sometimes the boldest throne was a cushion. Tucked beneath a velvet cushion in Sultan Murad IV's chamber was a diary, not of politics, not of war, but of dreams, bound in moon-colored leather and scented faintly of rosewater and figs. It was titled simply, Whispers of Sleep. No one knew the Sultan kept it, not the Valide Sultan, not Halil the eunuch, not even Princess Whiskerhan, who had a habit of sitting on secrets. Each morning, after his nightly sleepwalking adventures, the Sultan would wake, sip cinnamon tea, and write. His entries were poetic, peculiar, and occasionally prophetic. Last night, I danced with a biscuit. It wore a crown. I bowed. It crumbled. I dreamed of a tunnel made of pillows. At the end, peace and a nap. Nafis whispered that slippers should be tax-free. I agree. Lady Nigar discovered the diary by accident while reorganizing scrolls alphabetically by emotional impact. She read a few lines, gasped, and declared, This is bedtime brilliance. She shared it with Lady Yasemin, who embroidered excerpts onto pillowcases. Lady Zeynep turned one entry into a lullaby. Lady Faride composed a biscuit opera based on a dream about diplomatic pastries. The Valida Sultan was skeptical until she read an entry predicting her secret desire to open a bakery. She wept. Then she ordered cinnamon rolls. Soon, the diary became palace legend. The Sultan's dreams were studied, celebrated, and occasionally debated. One entry about a flying tortoise sparked a 3-day symposium, but the Sultan never bragged. He simply wrote, quietly, sleepily, with a feathered pen dipped in fig ink. One night, he dreamed of a harem where everyone ruled together through naps, poetry, and shared rosewater. He wrote it down. The next day, he declared a council of cushions where every concubine had a voice and a pillow. And so, the diary shaped the empire, not through decrees, but through dreams, because in the Ottoman harem, even sleep had power, and the softest thoughts could change the world. The Valida Sultan, in a moment of caffeinated ambition, declared no naps until sunset. Her reasoning, productivity, her mistake, underestimating the harem's devotion to daytime dozing. Lady Zainab gasped so hard she dropped her embroidery. Lady Faride fainted into a pile of biscuits. Lady Nigar clutched her scroll of nap philosophy, a study in horizontal wisdom, and whispered, "This is tyranny." The harem mobilized. Blankets were unfurled like battle flags. Cushions were stacked into barricades. Pajamas became uniforms. Princess Whiskerhen sat atop the highest pillow tower, her tail twitching with revolutionary flair. Lady Yasemin embroidered protest slogans onto sleep masks. Let us snooze. Dreams before decrees. No rest, no peace. Halil the eunuch, caught between duty and drowsiness, defected to the nap side. He brought rosewater and snacks. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, wandered into the rebellion, curled up on a protest cushion, and declared, "I hereby nap in solidarity." The Valide Sultan was furious. She summoned the Council of Wakefulness. They arrived yawning. One fell asleep mid-scroll. Another tried to outlaw hammocks and was booed by a chorus of synchronized sighs. Negotiations began. Lady Delara, now known as the General of Gentle Rebellion, proposed a compromise. Structured naps with optional poetry and biscuit breaks. Lady Nigar presented data proving naps increased embroidery accuracy by 73%. Princess Whiskerhen knocked over a scroll labeled Anti-Nap Policy and sat on it. The Valide Sultan relented. "Fine," she sighed, "but naps must be taken with dignity." And so, the Great Nap Rebellion ended in triumph. Nap rights were restored. Hammocks were upgraded. A commemorative lullaby was composed. And every afternoon, the harem rested, not just in comfort, but in victory. Because in the Ottoman harem, rest was sacred, rebellion was soft, and sometimes the most powerful protest is a perfectly timed nap. Lady Zainab was the culprit. She had fallen asleep mid-poetry recital, curled up on a velvet cushion, and unleashed a snore so majestic it startled the ode into playing a minor chord. The Valide Sultan was horrified. "We are refined. We are elegant. We do not snore." Lady Faraday disagreed. "We do. We just do it discreetly." Lady Nigar launched a scroll campaign titled Snore Rights, a manifesto of midnight honesty. Lady Yasemin embroidered a pillow with the words, "Let the nose sing freely." Soon, the harem was divided. The Anti-Snore League, led by Lady Delara, who claimed snoring disrupted her strategic dreams, versus the Snore Liberation Front, led by Lady Zainab, who snored in 3-part harmony. Princess Whiskerhen remained neutral, though she did nap exclusively beside the loudest snorers. The Sultan, sleepwalking as usual, wandered into the debate, snored once, and declared, "Let the people breathe." The Valide Sultan relented. A new decree was issued. Henceforth, snoring shall be recognized as a valid form of nocturnal expression. Celebrations erupted. The harem held a snore gala. Lady Faride composed a lullaby in snore rhythm. Lady Nigar documented the event in a scroll titled Echoes of Freedom. Lady Yasemin embroidered a quilt depicting heroic nostrils. And so, the final desire was fulfilled, not for power, not for pastries, but for the simple, sleepy right to snore without shame. Because in the Ottoman harem, even rebellion could be soft, and every breath deserved to be heard, even the noisy ones. The palace grew quiet. The oud hummed a lullaby. The hammam steamed gently. The biscuits were tucked in, and the concubines, wrapped in dreams and dignity, drifted into sleep, snoring softly, proudly, freely. Good night.